All right, welcome back, guys, to the Sooner Surge. Today, we got an OU practice report for you. Something that we're gonna do weekly on this station, on this channel. Make sure before we get started that you're subscribed to the channel. And turn your notifications on so you can get these videos notified for you. So, guys, today, first full day of pads today at Oklahoma. So that'll be on the next practice report. But I wanted to start with just the last few days, guys. Media was there. We got interviews from players and stuff. So just some things that we've heard from players and some things we're hearing is that the depth. I know we've talked about it before, but if you listen to any of the interviews from players, I listened to Rondell Bothroyd, and he compared OU's defensive line depth as one of the top in the country. Okay, said they're very deep. Called out Trace Ford as being really fast and one of the fastest guys. I think he even said the fastest guy he's ever seen on defensive line, which that
Yeah.
honestly came as a little bit of a shock to me. Not that I didn't know he was fast, but the high praise from Bothroyd for Trace Ford. He said he's healthy now, and just he said you're going to see it is what he said. So super excited about the depth from defensive line, and it wasn't just defensive line. You can go listen to a lot of the interviews. Whatever position group you're hearing, whatever coach you're hearing, it's the depth, guys. That's the big thing.
Yeah, and the Trace Ford thing was surprising because we talked on our podcast last week, and Trace Ford's name didn't even come up when we started talking about D line guys.
Yeah, there's so many questions with Trace Ford because he's had an injury history throughout his career at Oklahoma State before he transferred to Oklahoma. He was hurt in the spring some. So obviously it's with Trace Ford, can he stay healthy? And I think also another thing that Rondell Bothroyd said to me that stood out was just the comfortability in the spring or the comfortability in fall camp from the spring. These guys are able to play fast, they're able to play loose, and you're just able to really see. Obviously, you can't tell much off just the 45 minutes that the media gets and all the clips that we can see online of the players, because obviously they're not allowed access to see them scrimmage and stuff. But you can just tell like the different way these guys look, especially on the defensive line. Like they're more athletic than what they were under Alex Grinch. And under Alex Grinch, they had some pretty athletic defensive linemen. But they're not only more athletic, they're a lot larger. Like you have several guys that are over 300 pounds, a lot of guys that are in the 285 to 295 range. So just a massive defensive line. And I also think that Rondell Bothroyd said the goals for himself is for this team to win a conference championship, but potentially win a national championship. So obviously with Oklahoma, the phrase that has been used a lot is championship mindset. And with Rondell Bothroyd coming from Wake Forest, obviously they were a solid ACC program, but he's a veteran guy. He knows what it takes to win because at Wake Forest, they were a pretty solid team. So I think that with him and all this, especially the veteran leadership they have on the defensive line alongside Rondell Bothroyd, is what's going to help propel this defense into being much improved.
Another guy that we've talked about in the same kind of situation as Trace Ford would be, in the fact that we need him to stay healthy, is Nick Anderson, and he's turning some heads right now. I don't know if you saw the clip of him, man. He looks every bit of the part. And there was also a clip from Jeff Levy that I watched about Petaway, and you saw a clip of him kind of blocking downfield and catching a ball in an out route. Uh, you know, Levy did talk about some schematic things that he's going to have to work on, but he was excited that, I mean, obviously you could tell in Levy's voice that the excitement and the fact that he's going to get some run this year as a freshman. But
What
the whole thing about Nick Anderson being healthy, and it sounds like he is right now, he's turning some heads too right now.
Well, and I can't remember if it was on the radio or if it was on an interview or what, but Nick Anderson has also been very vocal and leading some drills, which is huge because he's only a sophomore, but that tells you that he's picked it up. He's picked up the offense really well. He's being more vocal. He's trying to lead drills to become that wide receiver three. That's the position wide receiver 3 that we're all curious about. I think we've all talked about this till we're blue in the face. Jalil Farouk, Drake Stoops are
Yep.
there for sure, probably to start. Who's going to be that third? And there's a variety. And the one thing, just from listening to all the interviews and stuff, we've heard the competitive depth. We've heard it till we're blue in the face. But I'm going to be very disappointed come season if OU's not playing a bunch of guys in multiple positions, because last year we heard that talk and they didn't really play a lot. So I know Levy said yesterday on his interview, I want to be 7 deep at receiver. He said that I want to be 7 deep. Well, so he said we got some guys that got to get there to be 7 deep. Well, I want to see that in games. I want to see him play 6, 7 receivers. I really do.
Yeah, I think Gibson's going to probably kind of go with Farouk on that, maybe that position some too, slide in there, give him a break, because Gibson's looking pretty good too from everything I've heard.
Yeah, and I've also heard that with all three of those guys, I don't know if Jason, you remember in the interview, but when Jeff Levy was talking about Jaquez Petaway, just the smirk he had on his face. Okay, I mean, he knows the kind of weapon he has. Obviously, you see the number 17 and you think of Marvin Mims. Okay, it's how it is. A smaller guy, very fast, good route runner. You think of Marvin Mims comparison. Now, I believe that Jaquez Petaway will end up being a starter this year at some point, whether that's week 1 or week 12. The kid is just uber talented. He may be, based off pure talent, the most talented receiver Oklahoma has outside of Nick Anderson. So it's just that, like, if he can get the playbook down, and obviously he doesn't look like a freshman physically. And that's another thing with all these players. No one looks physically behind. It's just the work they put in with Schmitty over the summer. They all look great. And then with Nick Anderson, obviously him, Stoops, and Farouk and Freeman have been labeled as so far in camp the top 4 guys. And which is kind of what you expected. I think we all know what Nick Anderson can be when he's healthy. And Jeremy, you're as high on Nick Anderson as anyone on this podcast. So I truly think that if Nick Anderson could stay healthy, he's going to be great. And Jaden Gibson, the one thing that was the issue with him was drops. It was just the mental side of the game. If he can get that taken care of, there's no reason why Jaden Gibson should not be on the field.
And I don't think we're going to know that until game days, because catching a ball in practice is different than game days. So we'll find that out. But one thing that I don't know if you guys saw the SI article, I think it was John Hoover that put out, just talking about Dylan Gabriel and his business-like approach this year. And if you haven't checked it out, it's out there. You can see that. But Dylan Gabriel, in the videos I've seen, in the interviews I've heard, in other things that have been written about him, he seems to be a tad bit different than last year. I don't know. I'm excited about that.
I mean, we'll see. But, you were talking about the drops and stuff. One thing that's different this year is you got Emmett Jones. And from what I've heard is the attention to detail that Emmett Jones has in practice is not really close to what they were getting with LaDainian Washington. Okay. He's very detail-oriented. And so I think you're going to see less drops. I really do, because I just think he's so detailed in practices.
Yeah, I agree with that. And just the attention to detail that Emmett Jones provides is what is going to really help this receiver group take it to the next level. And obviously we've seen with Emmett Jones his ability to recruit on another level. We've heard it. People call him Emmett Jones. Now he just needs to show that he can develop on the field.
Hey, Jerm, on Gabriel, here's the thing. It's another one of those things we're not going to know until game time, because you just don't see a whole lot, to me, when you even watch the drills that they post on videos on practice. There's not a whole lot you're going to get from practices, I don't think, until scrimmages happen and all that sort of thing, which the media is not going to be in on. So I do think just being another year in Levy's system, because Levy's system's different than what he had at UCF. Let's face facts. It's developed. It's evolved. And so last year he was in Levy's system, but it was probably different than what he was used to. And so I think, another year of that under your belt, another year of not being the new guy. Now you've been with these guys for a year. They're more comfortable with you. yeah, I think Gabriel's going to have a really good year.
Well, you know, you can't tell a whole lot about practice. I agree with you, but I think it is kind of intriguing that a couple of things that they've noticed about Jackson Arnold and just the way he slings the ball around. They noticed how quick he was and throwing the ball, ahead of in the timing before these guys have even entered the break.
Yeah, throwing them open.
So, I mean, that's impressive. I think for them to be pointing that out, that just kind of stacks on exactly what we thought about Jackson Arnold, who he thought he was, as Denny Green used to say. He's exactly who he thought he was. But yeah, the receiver room's interesting. I know Jackson's going to be dropping an article on Soonersurge.com, so check that out as the receiver room breakdown. But what else from these last few days of practices kind of stood out to you guys, or from the interview that you
I
heard?
was going to say that I can speak a little bit more upon things that I've heard, whether it's on the ref or on podcasts about Dylan Gabriel. It's that the dude, so they do these things called player-led practices where it's just 7-on-7 stuff. And Dylan Gabriel last year, I've heard, was taking the check down a lot, not being aggressive. And I've heard over the summer and even in fall camp, he's just throwing up the deep ball like crazy, giving his receivers chances, because that's what you're going to have to do, because he's going to have to build trust. And we also have heard that Dylan Gabriel has gotten faster too, and also his arm strength has improved. And that's the thing is, last year there was a lot of expectations on Dylan Gabriel, but the thing was he was never the Baker Mayfield, the Jalen Hurts, the Kyler Murray, the Caleb Williams. He was not. He came from UCF, which was then a non-Power 5 program. And he was a little bit undersized, but he truly is just very accurate. And I know also a lot of things that I've seen on social media is the coincidences of the 2000 national championship. Okay, they had a lefty quarterback ranked number 19 in the AP preseason polls, all that stuff. And people on social media are getting too far ahead of themselves. But Dylan Gabriel, I expect to be on a completely another planet this year. I truly do, and I think there's no reason why he can't be first or second team All Big 12 this year. There's no reason why he has the second most talent outside of Texas in this conference and in this receiver room.
What?
So he has all the tools to be successful.
Yeah, I agree. And one thing that I heard that was, I guess, comforting, encouraging as a Sooner fan was Javonte Barnes in an interview. I heard him talking just the fact that he's pain free. Because that's always a concern after a foot surgery is just how they're going to feel after that. And to hear that he's pain free and that he's glad that that's behind him is very encouraging.
Yeah, and that running back room is deep. We know that. We all heard about Gavin Sawchuk. People are saying, oh, he missed the first part of practice. It was just nothing, that he was probably getting wrapped up or whatever. Everything's fine on that aspect. So you got Barnes, Sawchuk, Major, Hicks. I mean, I could go on and on. It's a stable full of running backs there. So that's encouraging.
And
Go ahead, Jackson.
I was going to say, going upon the running back room, Jeff Lebby is extremely confident in the running back room when you hear him talk. I mean, he said, I don't know, like if this was his exact words, but he talked about how he needs a stable there and how he feels like there's a chance for them to be 5 or 6 deep week 1 of the season, which we know the talent they had. I mean, you look at schools like Alabama and Georgia, and they have like these running backs that have to sit and wait 2-3 years to get their opportunity. And they're in the system for 1 year and they're so developed that they're ready to go to the NFL. So I'm seeing some of that trend with DeMarco Murray. He's stacking this room, stacking these recruiting classes to have so much depth there that if 1 or 2 guys decides to transfer out, or if you have a super uber talented guy that maybe goes to the NFL and is an early first round pick. I mean,
and
there's going to be talent behind that's going to be ready to step up.
Yeah, for sure. And hey, if you're watching this video, please comment. I got a question for our viewers. Why, in your opinion, will OU be better this year? Why will they have a better year? I'm talking about position group, and that leads me to where I'm going here. And this is my personal opinion of why I think they're going to be a lot better this year. And I'm going to go with the linebacker room, okay, and cheetah room. Listen to McCullough talk, guys. Him and Harrington are both freaks. I'm just telling you, they're both freak athletes. And from what I heard multiple times on Harrington is that his coverage is like a defensive back, even with his size. And so I think we're going to see a lot of times maybe where they're bringing McCullough off the end and Harrington still in for coverage. I think just the multiple things they can do, those two guys. And even McCullough said it, is that he's being played in different positions at different times. And he said, you're going to see it this year. There's just so many multiple things they can do with their length and with the ability of Harrington to cover. And he even said, McCullough said that that's been the biggest change coming from Indiana is the coverage aspect. There's a lot more coverage in what he's doing than what he was doing at Indiana. Because if you go watch his tape at Indiana, he had a great freshman year. People forget too, the dude's a sophomore. That's it. The guy's he's a freak athlete. And what you saw mostly there was a lot of coming off the edge and stuff. So I think these guys learning this system and stuff. And Harrington guys last year didn't get a whole lot of play, but he trusted the process. He trusted. And I think he's going to have a massive year. And you put those two guys along with Stutzman, Canick, Kobe McKenzie, Connor Neer, Kip Lewis, Lewis Carter guys making a big impact from what I've heard, just for being a true freshman. There's just dudes on dudes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to say that going into week one, they are going to for sure be too deep at Cheetah, Mike, and Will Backer. And that's extremely confident, or that brings a lot of confidence to the defense as a whole and to Brent Venables. Because last year there was no depth there. There was just no one. And we heard that also another thing that I've heard is that in fall camp to last year, by week 4, their legs were completely dead. Like we saw it through the second half of the year. By the middle of the third quarter, they were just done, especially at linebacker and Cheetah, because there was no depth. There was just not any. This year, they are at least 2 deep, and I would not be shocked if they're 3 deep at each position by week 1 this season. And also, there was a report that came out, I believe it was Brandon Drum that said on a podcast that now they've decided to give these guys 1 day off each week because last year they went every single day out to the rugby fields and they were just so physically worn down. And part of that was because they had no depth, and the other reason is because they were being pushed so hard to get the culture and the foundation set. So this year, I think by week 1, we're going to see a team that's been able to go from week 1 to week 12 with not only with depth, but much more talent and really an improved just team and a team that Oklahoma fans need to be excited for this year.
Yeah, and I mean, Jay, you said it, freaks after freaks after freaks. The way that Canick, I've heard, is progressing. He's a freak athlete. Guy played quarterback in high school. He's going to be chasing people down at the linebacker position, but you know, I got to go get my physical for bus driving as I'm a coach here in the next few days, and I'm going to have to do the eye test. And I wonder sometimes if I'm going to pass. My vision's not great, but I promise you, OU's passing the eye test. They've already passed it. I mean, these dudes with Schmitty, it is going to be, and you said it, Jay, pad day changes things. These guys are going to be in pads. They're going to start hitting. You need to be subscribing to the Sooner Surge as we bring you the content of football season upon us, guys. Rodney Anderson days away. I saw someone posted that earlier. So it's exciting times.
Yep. And so this is something we're going to be doing weekly, guys, especially as the season starts. You know, I believe it's Monday nights that they get player interviews after practice. We'll kind of just be recapping those for you. Obviously, we don't have, we don't have the availability to be at practice. So we're going to be recapping those interviews all in one place for you here at Sooner Surge. And just so please subscribe. And guys, it's exciting. Pats today. I'm excited to see some videos from Oklahoma football on Twitter today, see some hitting. I'm sure we're going to see some Oklahoma drills. So, all right, guys, we'll talk to you later. Boomer.
Boom.